Hello, I am Anna Orr of OROMIA11. This is Community Connections. Today's guest will be Leslie Redmond, founder of Don't Complain Activate and the former president of the NAACP. Please join us. Hi, Leslie.
Hi, Anna. Thank you for having me today.
We are so excited to have you and to talk to you about the work that you've been doing and what you have going on. Thank you for joining me.
Of course.
Can you kind of explain to me just a little bit about your background and who you are?
Definitely. So, Leslie E. Redmond from the inner city of Washington, D.C., born and raised. I'm a first-generation college graduate. Grandparents were from the South, North Carolina, South Carolina, Houston, Texas.
Wow.
Parents born and raised in D.C. I was really like the first one to really leave and kind of, venture out. So I went to college in Miami at Barry University, studied political science, minored in African studies, was student body president at this predominantly white school, came to Minnesota in 2014, which is more recent than people probably think I've been here, but really in the midst of Ferguson and Mike Brown. And then I came in for law school. So I did my JD and my MBA at the University of St. Thomas. I'm a licensed attorney, but more so a social justice advocate.
Hold on a second, because you just kind of blew past that. That's a lot. So you not only are a first generation, right, graduate, you also are an attorney.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
That's a lot on top of your activism.
I know. Yeah. It's like I came here for law school, but really I see God wanted me here for all of the activism, right? Because as soon as I came, it was almost like instantly. Well, he did give me like a little breath of fresh air because I lived in St. Paul for my first year and I didn't even know the Black community. I couldn't find the Black community. I didn't see the Black community, and I was the only African American student in all of my first year law classes, right? And so actually I met Danielle and Arthur, and I met Kenneth Scales at an Urban League event, and that's when they were like, oh, if you don't know Black people, you should come to Shallow Temple and the National Ministries, right? And so that introduced me to the Black community. And then Nakima Levy Armstrong, who was my former law professor, she also became the president of the Minneapolis NAACP my second year in law school, and that's when Jamar Clark got murdered. But even before Jamar Clark, I was doing a lot in education and going to the school board meetings. We had shut down the school board meeting. And so, it's been a lot that's happened since I've been in Minnesota, but that's just a little bit of my background.
So for those that don't know, the NAACP is?
The National Association for the Advancement of Colored People. It's the oldest civil rights organization in the nation, founded in 1909.
That's such a beautiful institution with a lot of history. So I think the people need to know what that stands for.
No, I appreciate
if they haven't gotten a chance to plug in like they wanted to.
So many people don't know, specifically young people, right? They may hear the name, but they don't even know what the NAACP stands for or exactly what it does and really the rich history. But you can't talk about the history of America. You can't talk about racial justice without talking about the NAACP. Even when I was studying for the bar examination, the NAACP was in there, right? You talk about our first Supreme Court Justice. We know we now have our first Black woman Supreme Court Justice, Justice Jackson. Yes. But before her, we had Thurgood Marshall, who was the first one. And he was a part of the NAACP, right? He was working with the Legal Defense Fund. And so we're just deeply embedded in the history of America and this nation.
Now, you've talked to us a little bit about how you started to plug in here, not only in community through your faith, right, and going to find people at the NAACP event, but also going to Shiloh International Ministries.
100%.
Can you kind of let me know how that transition crossed over into your work with Jamar Clark during that time?
100%. So, one of the things I would say with the NAACP and the Black community in general, the centerpiece is the Black church. It always has been, right? Before we had the luxury of being able to afford buildings and go to other places, we were in the basement of the churches, right? And so for me, definitely my faith is first, right? God is the center of my universe for sure, and everything that I do, and I'm really led by faith. And I believe that's what caused me to activism. It was destined over my life. It wasn't something that I chose. It was something that really chose me, right? And so even I can remember some nights I would sleep out at the 4th precinct, and at this time I wasn't driving, but I would like get a ride to Shiloh to go to church. I remember specifically it was like one Saturday night I slept at the precinct and then went to church in the morning and went straight to church, you know. And so there's a direct correlation, and I think even me going to Shiloh, I know it's not a coincidence. I remember when I finally ended up at Shiloh, somebody was like, "Oh, you finally met my goddad," and she was like, she had tried to introduce me to Bishop Howell the year before. And I be moving so fast sometimes. That's why I was telling you over the phone, like slowing down is so important, because you miss sometime a part of your destiny when you're moving too quick. So I think I know it was destined for me to end up at Shiloh. And it's been a huge part of the movement building that I do, right? Whether we're talking about at the schools in North High School, or we're talking about, I started with Win Back the Community festivals, right? Did one at Harrison Park back in, I think it was around 2015, the summer of, and Bishop Howell sponsored the food that was from Sammy's Avenue Eatery, and we were able to get, young people there and give away free book bags and free food, and we had a festival, so young rappers and musicians were able to perform. And when you think about Minnesota being the land of Prince, right? Like that should just be embedded in everything that people do. And for me, it's always very important never to come to a place and just to extract value and never give it back, right? And so I'm really big on how can I be of service? Because again, growing up in the inner city of DC, we have Howard there. We have so many places, and there are a lot of Black people, specifically the Black elite, that come in the cities and they get their education and then they're gone, and they might come back and deal with the students, but forget all about the people that are living amongst them and that are keeping that community afloat.
Can you share with me just a little bit about how Don't Complain, Activate began, which is the title of the organization in which you are the founder of, correct?
Yes, Don't Complain, Activate. So it was 2016. I just come back from my first studying abroad. I was in India, Mumbai, India, the land of Gandhi, right, which we know so many of us have been inspired by, including Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr.
Absolutely.
And so in 2016, we were also, President Trump was getting into office, right? And I remember when I was flying back into town, the Women's March, they was having their first Women's March. Mm-hmm. And I remember seeing the franticness on social media and anxiety and how people really felt like this presidency was just going to basically be the dooms and day and everything was going to be ruined. But on the flip side of that, I saw so many people doing the work on the ground, right? And we know that politics is really local, right? While obviously the federal government impacts us, local government is just as important, and local activism is just as important.
I hope listeners are paying attention to that, because that's a big gem you just dropped.
100%.
Activism is local.
Yes.
Which means we have to get involved and start participating
100%
directly on the ground to affect the larger change that we want to see. Right?
100%.
Absolutely.
Key point. And so it's funny because years ago, my big mom, who would be 97 if she was still alive today, but that was very influential in my upbringing. We lived in the same house, just like really impacted me so much. Whenever anybody would ask her, how are you doing? She'd say, I won't complain, right? Then she's going to say, it wouldn't do no good anyways, because Black people, especially Black women, don't have the luxury of complaining, because nobody's coming to save us. We have to save ourselves. And so I don't think it's a coincidence that God gave me Don't Complain, Activate, right? Her granddaughter all of these years later. And so the idea behind Don't Complain, Activate is that you don't have to be President Barack Obama or Beyonce Knowles Carter in order to activate your community, right?
Absolutely.
It's everyday people that are transforming this world. Because a lot of people see me on TV or they see me activating and they feel like, oh, I can't do what you do. And it's because that's not their destiny, right? I'm walking in my purpose and my destiny, and everybody has to walk in theirs. Whether you're a mom or a dad, right? Your destiny might be raising up the next Barack Obama or Beyonce, right? Your destiny might be teaching. Your destiny might be being an artist, right? It might be being a videographer. You have to walk in your purpose, because we need everything. We don't just need a whole bunch of me's or a whole bunch of Annas, right? Absolutely. We need everyone to activate and from where you're at. I really stress that to people. Activate from where you're at and what God has laid on your heart.
You talked about taking the time to slow down so that you're not missing not only your purpose, but also opportunities that God is putting in front of you.
100%.
Can you share with me about how we can support you? I know you said that it takes, all kinds, and that there's roles for everyone to play. And some people I know want to do things fiscally. Some people want to actually come out alongside of you. But what ways can we support you and people like you in our community?
So one of the major ways is follow me on social media. We know social media is such a powerful tool. I was listening to Nicki Minaj, an interview with Joe Budden right before this, and she was talking about influence, and it was really making me think about it, because a lot of the time we have influence, but we're not extracting the value, right? And we don't even know how much power we have. But social media is one of those ways where you can see the power, and you can also share this with other individuals and say, hey, look at how many followers I have. Look at how many people are engaging, following my work. And so one of the things I'm working on right now is my own personal branding and building up my own following. So I'm Leslie E. Redmond. Redmond's REDMOND on all platforms, right? Instagram is the platform that I'm on the most, and so follow me on Instagram first, right?
You guys be sure to follow her.
Yes, follow me on Instagram. Keep up with
all the amazing work she's doing.
Yes, and then I'm going to get more on Twitter. Twitter is one that I used to be on Twitter, and I got off. Actually, I got off on Instagram too when I started law school, but I got back on because of activism, and now my account's verified, so everybody will see it. But follow me on Instagram. Follow me because even from following me, you'll see a lot of the calls to action that I'm doing, right? And for our older listeners, this may be like, I'm not on social media. I do have a website, and it's just leslieredmond.com, right? And so then you can join my mailing list. You can stay updated with what I'm doing. One of the things that I really do and I love to do is speaking engagements. So if anyone has speaking engagements, trainings that they need around racial justice and equity, I would love to be of support to people. And it's also a way for me to support myself financially.
Wonderful. Can you share with us just a little bit about what's next for you?
So we kind of started talking about it, really the branding component, because for me, and I think for so many Black people, we are doers, right? We just want to do the work, and we undersell ourselves, right? And so right now is really the season for me to kind of step back and really work on branding myself, right? And getting all of my ducks in a row. So obviously, like I said, I have the website, which we just relaunched on my birthday. Working on my social media. I have, and you're the first one I'm saying it is on a public platform, but I have a radio segment coming out on KMOJ. It's going to be launching April the 30th that I'm really excited about. A Don't Complain, Activate segment, Saturday mornings at 9 a.m.
So we'll have to keep an eye out for that.
Yes.
89.9.
Exactly. Yes. So I'm super excited about that. I'm also doing an Instagram live series called Black First, where I'll be interviewing Black entertainers and really talking about the importance of no matter where we go, no matter what positions we have or titles we have, we can't forget about the struggle for racial justice, because we know historically we've had Aretha Franklin, Muhammad Ali, Harry Belafonte, so many names in the entertainment industry that never allow for themselves to be used, one, to the detriment of their people, but also took an active fight in the struggle. And so I'll be interviewing people like Yandy Harris Smith. She's my first guest on Monday
from Love and Hip Hop.
From Love and Hip Hop, and who was really like a executive in the music industry before that, where I worked with Missy Elliott and so many others.
That's right.
And so yeah, they know Yandy from Love and Hip Hop, which I'm excited about.
Something a little
no,
more
that's
recent.
good.
You know, we're a little older, maybe.
Millennials.
So thinking about Jim Jones and
yes, you're right.
Yeah.
No, but you're right, and that's honestly when she came to my attention. Even though she's an HBCU graduate and has really, a lot of the time when we come to people's attention isn't our starting moment, right? It's like almost not the end, but it's like the beginning of us being in position for the world, but God had been preparing us for so long before that, and we'll even be talking about that so that people can tune in. If this launches before that, it's going to be Monday, this upcoming Monday, but if not, they can always watch the playback on my Instagram page, which is why it's important to follow me. And then we'll have Tristan Wiles, who is also known as Mac Wiles. He was on The Wire, a number of different acting shows. He just was on Broadway for an amazing play. It was called color men. It was something about black men and like listening to black men. I can't believe I can't recall the title, but it was such a powerful play. Okay. And then we'll have Steven Jackson, who is the basketball player who was like brothers with George Floyd and who was very involved. So those are our first 3 guests, and then we'll continue on and have some local people that individuals know, and I'm excited about that. So KMOJ, social media, continue to do my speaking engagements. And the final thing I'll say, obviously we have a lot cooking, but the final thing is really getting into real estate development. And so I'm actually doing that in Baltimore. Baltimore, I'm from DC, born and raised. Baltimore is a 45-minute drive. It's one of our traditional black cities that haven't been gentrified yet, but the gentrification is coming slowly but surely. And I believe the opposite of displacement is development and authentically building with the community. And so a lot of my work is about to start being on the East Coast as well. And so I'm very excited about that.
Now we're not losing you to the East Coast, are we?
It's
going to split our time.
Exactly.
I gotta know if we're taking this on tour. I'm going to stay tuned regardless.
It's not a loss because Minnesota, one, is where I got my start for the world to see me, right? And it's always going to be a second home. And I'll be splitting my time. I'll be back and forth, but Baltimore is going to become where I'm more like stationary at. But I'll be back and forth. Minnesota will never lose me.
Okay.
It's kind of like Prince, right? I feel like even though Prince left to share his gifts with the world, he always came back home.
Absolutely. Right? And Minnesota is a launching pad, right? So we come here, or people are born here, and I feel like they just start to sprout and bloom and go where they're supposed to go.
It is something special about Minnesota. And I don't know if I said it, but I accidentally ended up in Minnesota. Minnesota was not on my radar. I knew nothing about Minnesota. When I was in college in Miami, I was supposed to apply to St. Thomas in Miami, and I ended up applying to this St. Thomas, and they offered me a really good scholarship. And so, because I was headed to Michigan State, but they weren't offering me that much. But anyways, I digress. But I just say that to say God really had a plan that was very different than my own.
What do they say? Tell God your plans,
and He'll laugh, right?
And He'll laugh. She said
so I'm very excited. I'm excited to see what my 30s are going to bring, because my 20s were pretty extraordinary.
Well, we've seen you all over CNN, Tamron Hall Show,
right?
So many different avenues, and I can't wait to see what unfolds for you next. Thank you for joining me. Thank you for the work that you're doing, and I hope that we'll get a chance to connect again soon.
Definitely. Thank you, Anna.